What's up, everybody? It's Justin,
I'm Hope.
and today we're talking about the scales of life.
Yeah.
All right. So essentially, we're talking about how to observe, understand, and comprehend people. And I think that is a very essential thing that everyone should do. The more you understand people, the more you have grace for people, the more you are compassionate toward people, and the more you can be also firm with people. Being able to place people in the right boxes in your life. And that's one of the first things we'll talk about. We're also going to break down a scale of that I created that is essentially helps gain a better understanding of individuals when you meet them, and knowing how to categorize certain individuals, because the more you know about a person, the more you can get along with, understand, use that person in your life, as opposed to, here's a good example. A lot of times they'll tell you about, like, oh, if someone's toxic, just cut them out. Just cut them all the way out your life. You don't have to do that, right? Sometimes doing that can also have lasting, long, painful effects. Like, say you cut your mother out of your life and maybe she was toxic, but you could have placed her in a box that allowed you to still have her in your life and not cutting her out. And that's by setting up certain boundaries and limitations to where you can still contact your mom, you can still talk to your mom if you need to, but if she's toxic, she's far enough away that she's not going to be harming your everyday life. Yeah. We're going to break into that, putting people in different boxes in your life. We want to make sure that, for example, if I have a friend or a buddy who, let's say, they're not good with money, right? Let's say they're not, a lot of times from meeting and talking to people, you learn a lot about people. Let's say this friend has a gambling addiction. I don't think it's right to say, oh, you can't be my friend because you have a gambling addiction, but I also am not going to loan you money.
Yeah.
Right? We can still be friends. Your gambling addiction has nothing to do with our friendship. That's on you. However, I know if you're not safe with your own money, you're not going to be safe with mine.
Right.
So, like, that's a prime example of, we can still be friends, but you're not a type of friend I'm loaning money. Mm-hmm. A lot of people think that, oh, they're my friends, so they just kind of give them universal access, for everything. And so they're like, oh, well, I'll give you money if you need it. I'll have you back if you need it. Mm-hmm. Meanwhile, they might not have your back. Yeah, ride or die. Like, now you're pulling up, losing your life possibly, all kinds of stupid stuff. But, or expectations. You have expectations for them to fill something that they can't fill, do things they can't do.
Yeah.
Maybe you're having a hard time and you expect your friend to come over and drop what they're doing that's to help you. That's not what friendship is.
Right.
And maybe you have some friends that are good for that and some friends that are not. And so we have to know how to categorize our friends into different categories. And maybe some of my friends will be watching. You're like, oh, you categorize me? Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Everyone lives in a category. She lives in a cat. We all live in a category, right? So don't take it nothing but personally, but essentially, hopefully you can take my advice with dealing with people in your life and knowing who you can trust, who you can't trust, or how much you can trust those people with different things.
In order to remain connected without being impacted in a negative way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Maintain the connection in the friend, because friendships are valuable.
They are.
Family and friendships, it is one of the most valuable things in life, right? If life is a journey from A to B, it's about enjoying that journey from A to B.
Yeah.
And if I am to enjoy that journey from A to B, what fun would it be all by myself? Not a lot of fun. I'm just by myself, alone, all the time. No one here to experience life with or enjoy life with. Sounds very lonely, sad, and not, in my opinion, a good way of enjoying life, if you ask me.
Well, humans are social creatures, so we're meant to socialize and unify.
Yeah, that's part of our purpose here, is to socialize and to enjoy each other's company and to establish some type of unity and things like that. Connections, yeah. And so let's break more into detail on this factor of putting people in different boxes in your life. All right. So let's say you have your box. All right. This is like your most important box, right? And this box is the box that you are in. So if you're in this box, this is your most sacred, need to be protected box.
Mhm.
So you can't just let anybody in this box.
Right.
That's how you ruin yourself, right? And usually, who you letting in your box would be like a significant other, girlfriend, wife, you name it. Someone that's you, or sometimes it can even be someone you live very closely with and share a lot of things with. Sometimes it can either be people like that. But essentially, you want to be very, very careful about who you let inside of your box.
Yeah.
That's the box that has your heart in it, has your mind in it, has your soul in it. That box, if you let the wrong people in it, it'll drag you down
Yeah.
to the worst version of yourself. And so it's very important to keep that box the most guarded.
Yeah.
All right. So on a side note, after you have that box that is self, then you have an outer rim of boxes. All right. That next outer rim of boxes is like, you're not in my box. You're not necessarily always in my space. You're not, all like, that's not the variable. But however, if you're in one of those side boxes, like you're someone who can come and we can kick it, we can have a good time, or we can play games together, we can play board games or play video games, or we can watch
Yeah.
movies, or we can have good times, right? But notice how there's a lot of different boxes. Some of those boxes, like you could have, like let's say you could help each other through life. Let's say if I need a loan, I have certain friends in certain boxes who
that you can rely on when it comes to that.
Yes, I
Yeah.
can rely on them. Be like, hey, I need a loan, and I can also rely on hey, bro, I need a loan. If I have it here,
Yeah.
I got you because
they'll pay it back.
I know they'll pay it back.
Right.
But not all these boxes in that outer rim have that ability.
Right.
Just certain.
Or even certain levels of advice and things like that. People that that you are safe to go to and you're going to get solid, sound advice versus going to a different friend that isn't able to offer you the same sound of mind advice.
Right. That's an important one. And having a friend to vent to that is a safe place. That's very mentally healthy, very important. And a lot of people don't have that. It's good to have a friend or friends that you can vent to, that you can talk about hard things with, that you can talk about what you're dealing with, and them not be there to judge, criticize, ridicule, but be there to listen. And if they have advice, it is only positive advice meant for helping.
Yeah. With the good intention.
Good intention.
Not meant for division or things like that.
Yeah.
Nothing that would prey on your downfall.
Yeah. That's not a good friend.
No.
So essentially, like these are two very different boxes. Like I might have somebody I talk to about life and about things and about those and vent to, might be a very different person than a person I'd ask money from, because maybe I can trust you with money, but how are you as a person? Are like
elevated is your mindset?
Is your mindset? Are you an open, free thinker? These are valuable. You don't have to be those things to be my friend, but if you want to be in this box over here, you got to be those things, or vice versa.
Yeah.
And so that outer rim is not necessarily like living with you, not necessarily like always in your space. That outer rim is like, these are friends you can rely on for certain things, right? And you have to be the one to categorize what those things are.
Yeah.
Right? Some friends, there's the rim. Now look, now we're getting further. So you have your box, you have the outer rim of boxes around your box, and then you got boxes even further outside of that range of boxes. Those are more of like the acquaintances, like you can still consider them friends if you want to, but in all reality, they're probably only good for about one thing. That's okay. They're the friends that like maybe you can call them and kick it with them every now and then, because maybe them being around too much will be dangerous to your space. But you can still be friends with these people. You just have to be friends with them at a distance, or be friends with them in small doses of moderation.
Yeah.
And so it's okay to have all these kind of friends, and I think it's good to have all these kind of friends. You might be like, oh well, why do I even need those friends in that farthest outside box if they're not super, if they're insufferable, if they're not super fun to be around, or be around that much, why do I need those friends? Because you can also observe and learn a lot of things from those friends, right? They may not
Yeah.
add a lot of value to your life, but can I learn things from them? Can I be a positive influence in their life?
Right.
Can I be that positive friend that they look to for help?
Yeah, because I know, like, you run into situations all the time where it feels like, man, I'm their best friend, but they're not really my best friend. It's that kind of same concept of investing in their life and being a positive thing for them versus the other way around.
And I also think that's an important thing. I think not everything has to be super transactional. Yes, this is a very transactional grid. However, it is still not transactional at the same time, because I'm keeping these people in my life because I do care about these people.
Yeah.
I do care about them, and I know they care about me. And as you said, I might have people who, I'm their best friend. They might not be mine, and that's okay.
Yeah.
That's not what friendship is.
No.
And that's okay. But in that aspect, we want to be able to be there for each other where we can.
Right.
Right. And so this person on this outer rim of the box, maybe you can't trust them with money. Maybe they're not good at advice because they're a really negative individual or whatever. Or maybe they're not even that intelligent. Maybe a mixture of all of it. That doesn't mean we can't be friends. We can probably play games together still.
Yeah.
Maybe he's good at a game I like.
Yeah.
Maybe we like playing chess together, or maybe we like
on Apex.
Apex or Tekken, or you name it. Like, so maybe we have a shared interest that we can always come together and do. That is enough to, and a positive influence. Sometimes it's good to have people you care about, people that you can be there for, and people that, enjoy your presence, your influence. I find that is an important thing. If I can be a positive influence on someone's life, that means something to me. Yeah. So essentially, what I'm getting at with this is, with these box systems, you essentially is setting boundaries. You're setting boundaries to where, we have to be careful. Like, that main box that you're in, that's the most precious box that should have the most boundaries in it. Don't let anybody in that box.
Yeah.
Maybe one person, that should be a very sacred box. And then you have the boxes around, those are like your close friends who you can rely on for different things. And then you have the rim of boxes outside of that one. Those are like more of associates who you can consider friends if you want to. A friend is more of a title.
Yeah.
But you can consider them friends, but friends for what they're friends for, and
it also helps you set your expectations with that person. Understanding certain things and values that they have in your life helps you navigate that a lot better.
Like, I could have a toxic family member, and they might originally start off in my box because they're family.
Yeah.
We grew up together. They're gonna be in your box to some degree as a kid growing up. But once you realize maybe those toxic behaviors, you're like, okay, I don't need that in my box. But I don't want to cut them out of my life completely. So that's when we place them in one of these other boxes.
Yeah.
Or maybe we're not living together. Maybe we're not always in each other's space. Maybe I'm not reaching out for advice. Or maybe I'm not,
Right.
But I can still, hey, how are you? Hey, how are things? Hey, here's some positive advice. Or...
I also think it helps in situations too, because you always hear these stories of people that were friends for decades and decades, and then all of a sudden the friendship just abruptly ended, and now they don't talk at all anymore. Sad. And I think a lot of that is due to the higher expectations and not an understanding that as people grow and change and mature, they're going to have different qualities, and you have to still be able to place them accordingly.
Yeah, at least if you want to keep friends.
If you want to maintain connection.
Yeah. And if you don't, you're going to probably find yourself being a very lonely person.
Sad.
I know people who don't have this. I'm using a box method to kind of interact and set boundaries with people in my life. And I know people who don't have any kind of method, they have all these expectations for every person they meet to be just this holier than thou best friend who you can give. You're good with money. You're good with advice. You're good with everything. You're just you play all the games I play. You're just a fully well-rounded. Everything I do, everything I would do. You're here. You got my back when I have a flat tire. Like, that's all expectations.
Yeah.
And you're not going to find everybody meeting those expectations.
No. Nobody's going to meet.
No one's going to meet all those.
Unless they're a robot. Like.
Right. No one's usually going to meet all those, or at least not forever.
Right.
You know, especially if you got a lot of shit going on around in your life. Like, I'll be there for you as much as I can. But if it's a constant thing that starts to impact my life badly, you might get moved to a further box.
Right.
You know, okay, you have a lot of problems all the time that you always need my help with.
Shifting.
Yep, you're now in this box. Now when you call, I'm busy.
Yeah.
And that's just, well, sometimes I might actually be busy.
Okay.
If you have chaos in your life constantly, I don't need to be part of it. If you're trying to pull up and fight somebody all the time, that sounds like chaos. Yeah. I don't need that in my box or any close box. I'm going to keep it at the far box. So I'm like, hey, bro, I'll give you advice when you're dealing with the shit.
Right.
But I'm not pulling up on shit. I'm not pulling up on nothing.
Yeah. I understand that.
I'll be the friend like, well, why were you there? Like, what happened?
Yeah.
You know, like, what
are you guys doing?
Yeah, like, why? What did this happen for? Isn't that stupid? Like, you know, I mean, but, and you're fake. Okay, I might be. But at least I'm here to have your back with wisdom. I'm giving you knowledge. I'm trying to help you. I'm not going to help you physically because I don't know why you're fighting in the first place. You know, these are all just random hypotheticals.
Yeah, we're just talking.
But essentially, if you can set the correct boundaries with people in your life, that will give you peace to where you can keep those people in your life without having to cut them out. And then that way you also don't have any expectations that are going to disappoint you.
Right.
You know, if, as I said, if I give somebody $10 and they take forever or never pay me back, hey, I'm not too mad because I learned you're not in that box. I'll put you in this box now. That's okay. We can still be friends. Mm-hmm. However, I'm not loaning you money again. You know what I mean? So it's just like knowing how to place those boxes and boundaries in your life really empowers you to keep friends and keep family into your life without having to cut them off. And I think that's very valuable.
Yeah.
You know, especially the last thing you want to be is a very lonely person who dealt with a lot of hard things.
Right. With
no one there to have your back. Mm-hmm. That is not a good place to be. That's how you die.
Yeah. Quick.
That's how you die. Whether it's homicide, suicide, whatever. Mm-hmm. That's how you crash out. You need people in your life that care about you, and you need people in your life to care about.
Yeah.
It's part 100%. It's part of being human and having a purpose. Part of a purpose is to care for each other. That's part of our purpose. But essentially, I hope that kind of summed up, and feel free to message, comment, reply if you have any questions on how that works or how to do that in specific situations. I'm always open to talking more about that and breaking more into detail because it's very person to person with how you go about it and how you deal with those things. But I think that covers the box method of placing boundaries of people in your life. So that way they can be in those boxes. And sometimes they can be in a further box and they can grow as a person and elevate to a better box. Yeah. Or sometimes they'll fuck up or they'll deteriorate and you put them in a worse box. But this allows you to maintain connections and friends and things to smile about. People to call and check up how you're doing every now and then. Like, that feels wonderful. And the more people that you have doing that, that's just a nice thing. Yeah. Back to more understanding of how people work. Because as I said earlier, the more you understand how people work, how someone ticks, the more not only do you gain control over your life and how to manage those people, but you understand, okay, this, like, I can meet somebody now, and just off meeting you, I know exactly what box to put you in. Just like that. Yeah. I don't have to do a bunch of trial and error. I don't have to figure out what kind of person you are by all this long-term things. Pain and suffering, yeah. I can sense who you are. I can tell who you are because I've met a lot of people like you. Yeah. And everyone's different. but sometimes some people are more similar than others. And if two people are very similar, like for example, if you're in the dating pool and you met one really toxic person with a lot of toxic traits, but you observed that person, saw how they ticked, when you meet another person with toxic traits, they may be completely different people,
Yeah.
and they may have even different toxic traits, but you can but okay, you share these 4 toxic traits in
Right.
common. So I know maybe you're not good to be in my box.
Yeah.
These are important things. That's why I tell you guys that studying and understanding people around you is very important and very empowering with how you manage, run, and conduct your life.
Mm-hmm.
And so that is a very empowering thing. And so one of the first things we want to know when it comes to understanding and observing people is the basic thing that people do. From a child growing up to an adult, what people do is you've heard the saying, monkey see, monkey do.
Mm-hmm.
What we do as humans, especially growing up, our brains are still developing. We copy, we paste. That's what we do. We see something, we become something.
Yeah.
That's how children are little sponges for knowledge and behaviors and things.
Yeah.
And so you have to understand that anytime, whether you meet an adult, child, doesn't matter, they are a reflection of the copy and the paste.
Mm-hmm.
And this can also be like, let's say if you're talking relationships, when you meet someone's parents, noticing those traits, noticing, okay, what did you have? What did you have to copy from?
Yeah.
What did you copy? Like, what did you copy? And if you meet the parents, odds are, and they're toxic as shit, odds are they could be toxic as shit. Odds. You're fine. Odds. However, if someone is self-reflective and breaks a lot of patterns and breaks out of a lot of that that copy and paste, then that can be an exception to the rule.
Right.
But essentially, one of the biggest things that people do is they copy and they paste when they're growing up. So that's another thing when you're meeting someone and figuring out what box to put them in. It's very important to ask questions.
Yeah. Understand the background of who they are.
Mm-hmm. Get a background, get a life story, figure out what they had to copy and paste from their childhood, their last relationship. Sometimes people copy and paste those too, especially if they're young. Your brain doesn't stop developing until 25.
Yeah.
So anything 25 and younger, it's very essential to understand what have you been copying and pasting? What have you become? And a lot of people are a reflection of their past. Mm-hmm. They are a copy and pasted version. Sometimes you'll have people in a toxic relationship and then they'll get in the next relationship, and even if they weren't the toxic one in the last one, they are now. Yeah. They copied and pasted those variables, especially if they're under 25. Right. That's usually a common variable. Or even if they're older, if they never self-reflected and changed and dealt with fixing these wirings, a lot of times people are a product of their environment, of their upbringing. And that's just a natural code of how humans are. We copy, we paste. So a big thing when it comes to learning and understanding someone is ask about their past, ask about what they've been through, ask about their childhood. Yeah. These are the things that we want to ask about to fully comprehend and understand somebody. And so that's just the base code of how humans are, especially when it comes to trauma. Yeah. Trauma is a vicious, damaging.
Yeah. We're in a society where trauma shapes individuals into who they are instead of using it as, I survived this, but I didn't let it define me. Mm-hmm. I am this instead.
Yeah. What do you call it? The survivor mindset?
No, I changed it. I feel like everybody lives in a victim mindset. For instance, domestic violence. I shifted my mindset from a victim mindset to a survivor mindset. That way, I'm not holding on to a victim mentality when it comes to that. Oh, woe is me. Why'd this happen? No. Yeah, it happened. I went through it, but I survived it. And I also survived it by not letting it define who I was going to be for the rest of my life.
Right. And that can also be a variable where that trauma can make your lens dark. And we'll be talking about the trauma lenses here in a minute. But if you have a negative lens toward things, or maybe your ex was abusive and maybe you're with someone now who's not abusive, if you feel triggered by something, you might just assume that he's just as abusive as the last one,
Yeah.
all because of a trigger, even if he's not.
Triggers are crazy because they really do like throw you into a different reality for a minute.
Yeah, they like take you back to the past almost
Mhm.
and make it your present.
Yeah.
And so now, even if your present is nowhere near like the past, it may as well be.
Yeah.
All because, and that goes back to trauma. So if you're like, man, I keep getting in these arguments with this person and I don't know why, that very much could be a reason is
Yeah.
simply trauma. And in traumatic moments, they might view you as
the
same. And I'm not saying that we're completely perfect, and we've had to work through those same kind of things
Yeah.
when we started our relationship. Like, okay, where's our damage?
Mm-hmm.
You know, where am I damaged from my past and where are you damaged from your past?
Yeah.
And how do we fix those things? Because the last thing I want to do is take things out on you and treat you like you're the one who hurt me.
Right.
You know?
100%.
And so that's also a very important thing. So that point I was trying to make is that essentially people they copy, they paste. And that is a lot of the reasons why they are the way that they
Mhm.
are. So that is a big thing to observe about a person. Why are you like this? What have you been through? What trauma have you been through? What
Right.
childhood have you been through? What teachings were passed on to you? That's copy paste. You know, are you super conservative because you had a lot of old conservative people you grew up with,
Yeah.
or do you believe this way because you were raised in this religion, or you know, these are all,
It's just how are you influenced and why?
yeah, how are you influenced and why? These are essentially how we understand a person. And as I said, for those of you who are like, why do I need to understand people? Why can't I just be super introverted and hide in my house and not be social at all? Because that is how you die.
That's what is your death warrant.
Yeah. The last thing you ever want to do is, and so if you're a person watching this and you are living alone, always alone, that's okay to be alone, but just make sure we're valuing those connections.
Yeah.
And we're building some sorts of friendships and finding like-minded individuals that you can enjoy life with, because things get to feel real pointless when you're alone all the time.
Right.
So that's essentially, people are important, and whether you want to believe that or not, you know, that your quality of life a lot of times depends on if you have loved ones in your life. And that's why if you ever go into therapy or anything like that and you've gone through some traumatic events, which traumatic events can happen to anybody, you've gone through some traumatic events, they're always asking, do you have a support system? Do you have family? Do you have friends? Do you have someone,
people you can talk
people
to,
you can talk to, people care, because it is
it's existential in your life.
Yeah, it's important for your survival rate, for you to keep on feeling like you have purpose. Sometimes is to have people that care about you. You know, this is one I came up with myself, because yes, although everybody's brought up differently, everyone has different levels of comprehensions, and whether they copied and paste behavior or, you know, different things, a big variable in how or who a person is the way their mind works.
Yeah.
Right? We all have like a default setting in our mind of how intelligent we are, right? And intelligent ranges in a lot of different variables. Because you could be smart at one thing and dumb at another. You could be a genius at something, but overall, maybe a dumbass at everything else. You can't cross the street and look both ways. You know, like, so there's different variables. And so I'm going to try to break it down to you the best I can. But essentially, I have a scale, and I call it the intellectual and crude scale, or the crude and intellectual scale. All right. So essentially, a crude is like a caveman. You know, like that's the like sloping forehead. There's not a lot of intelligence. Like this motherfucker, a dummy. If you ever watch Ed, Ed and Eddie, that is a perfect example of this analogy. I'm gonna break back into. Remind me to bring that one back when I get to the end of this, because I need to explain it. We have a crude, you have an intellectual. They're really intelligent, and then you have a halfwit. They're somewhere in between, somewhere balanced between nuck and
too smart for your own good.
Too smart for your own good, intellectual. So I'm gonna break down like what these kind of characters are. So a crude, very simple minded, not a lot of free thinking. They're not very intelligent people. There's a lot of these guys out there. They're probably very emotional, probably run more off emotions than logic. This is a crude. You know what I mean? They're ready to fight at an instant, at any little moment, like crude behavior.
Yeah.
Overreacting, like very emotional beings. However, crudes are very good, like if you're at the bar or the club. They're very good with, like if it's a man, very good with women. Or a woman, she's probably fast. Would you say that's accurate?
Yeah.
So they're not very, super socially intelligent. Very good socially. Socially, they're very good with other people. They're very good about being social, but not super intelligent. Not a lot of logic going on. These people might be sleeping around all the dang time, and whether it's catch AIDS or get people pregnant and then not even fucking, like
Yeah.
their life just kind of just runs. There's a lot of these people out there. They just keep having kids. They're not thinking about things. They're just people who
Primitive.
they're primitive. They're just
They
people
live a primitive life.
A primitive life. They live off their emotions.
Yeah.
And not very tactical individuals. All right, that's a crude. All right, on the opposite end of the scale, we have an intellectual. So an intellectual, this is like the far. So we already had the knock crude, right? Now we're on the opposite end of the scale. We're talking about an intellectual. These people are very intelligent, but too intelligent.
Yeah, they're the ones falling down different rabbit holes and spiraling and
deep.
Yeah,
deep. Usually, so opposite from the crude, not good socially. Usually very introverted. Very introverted, keep to themselves for the most part. They're not good with people. They're overthinking constantly all the time. However, these are the type of people that are our rocket scientists. These are the type of people who can invent a rocket in their backyard. Like they're a genius. They can all the deep levels of whether it's math or deep, like they're good at that stuff. They got it. Their brain is really good at rabbit holing versus the crude's brain ain't thinking about nothing.
Crash and burn if it tries to rabbit hole.
Yeah. It ain't thinking about nothing. It's just doing stuff. And then the intellectual, that's the one that's really smart. They can invent something in their backyard. They're really intelligent. However, there's a drawback. As I said, one was they're not good socially. Usually, if they're a man, they're not good with women. If they're a woman, they're not good with men. Not good at being relaxed and free. Social cues, they don't pick them up. No. A lot of times don't pick them up. Another example of our intellectuals is serial killers. Most serial killers are, in fact, intellectuals. They're very intelligent, too intelligent, like rabbit holey. What I mean by rabbit holey is, so we talked about the crude brain. It's not thinking about anything. It's more driven off of emotions and impulse. It just does stuff. Versus the intellectual, yeah, it's smart enough to do damn near whatever it puts its mind to, but the problem is sometimes its brain is so linear. It falls down such a deep rabbit hole of thinking that it can't zoom out and see the whole picture.
The whole picture, yeah.
Right? Like you might zoom in and feel someone's
problem solution. Instant. There's no, okay, if I do this, what will impact this. Like
there's
it's
not a lot
just
of that.
one linear
path. That ability allows them to, as I said, build a rocket ship or invent some shit. However, it can be bad, especially in a serial killer's mindset where pain, trauma, mom, trauma, women, bad. like
death upon women.
Yeah, and then they're hard to catch for the police because they're fucking devious. They're smart. But that's not always a good thing to be in that aspect. Because as I said, we're lacking social cues, a lot of times lacking the simple humanity things. We're almost too damn logical to where we lose a bit of our humanity. Like they don't understand feelings. Like that's so that's more of an example of an intellectual. All right. So pros and cons. Pros, they can invent something. Cons, they might be a neighborhood serial killer. Like pros and cons. Not good with human interactions. Very introverted. Pros and cons. So we have our crude, we have our intellectual.
Yeah.
And then now we have the one in the middle. I call it a halfwit, right? That is what, in my opinion, people should try to strive to be, because
Yeah.
just because you're on this scale doesn't mean you're set. You can move up and down this scale, right? Um, for example, here's this scale right here. It's probably inverted from the camel. Crude, half the intellectual, and the half wit in the middle. And you can be also on any one of these lines. See all these little dashes? Right? Between the crude, intellectual, and half wit. So just like there's no like black and white to this thing. It's a scale, right? You can go up and down the scale. You could be between the half wit and the intellectual, to where you're not like a serial killer or an inventor, but you're also very smart. You might be on a notch in between, those two variables. Or you can be a smart crude, smarter than all the other crudes. You might be between crude and halfwit.
Mm-hmm.
Halfwit is kind of like the in between,
the balanced point.
These are typically your businessmen. Like, yeah, there might not be a genius enough to invent some shit, but they're smart enough they can figure out business.
Mm-hmm.
Or they know people skills, which is what comes from the crudes are very good with people skills, and they're smart enough to manipulate them. So that's like a halfwit. Like they can use intellectual abilities and the crude abilities.
Yeah.
They're somewhere very much in between. They can be introverted or extroverted. These are very in between people. And as I said, these are usually like your businessmen. These are usually your entrepreneurs. Like they're smart, but they're not a genius.
Right.
And so that's your halfwit. And so the goal is to try to get somewhere balanced. Like you don't want to be so deep down the intellectual rabbit hole that now you lose all social cues, but you don't want to be so deep crude that you're a fucking monkey.
Yeah.
So you want to try to find the balance point. And I referenced Ed, Edd n Eddy earlier.
Yeah.
I think it's a cartoon that played on Cartoon Network when we were kids. Very funny. If you haven't seen it, check it out. It's hilarious. One of my favorite cartoons. But Ed, Edd n Eddy is a prime example of this scale of the three kinds of people. You have Ed, and Eddie. One of them strong as shit, like retard strength, but dumb as hell. Dumb. He could lift a house. It wasn't the cartoon.
Yeah.
He can lift a house in the cart. Like he can lift anything. He's the muscle. But they're, hey Eddie. Like that's that one. Then you have the other Ed. He's like the one trying to swindle the neighborhood. He's always trying to get money for jawbreakers. Yeah. Every episode he's trying to con the neighborhood.
Some kind of business.
He's basically a con man looking for business schemes every episode so we can buy jawbreakers. That's the halfwit.
He's the one in charge of everything behind the
scenes.
scenes.
He's usually orchestrating both these guys. And then you have the other Ed, or is that Eddie? Then you have Eddie. He is the intelligent one. Yeah. He's the inventor. When they need something, the intellectual.
Overthinking all the time.
All the time. No social skills. They have to drag him out the house. But
he can create an invention like that to get them out of wherever they're at.
Or get them money.
Yeah.
That's usually what they do is he'll have that one make some invention to where they can swindle the neighborhood with this invention. And then the other one is the muscle who helps build it and put it together. And then you have the schemers in the middle. Mm-hmm. But that's a prime example of those three extremes in a nutshell. You got the extreme intellectual, the crude, and the right smack in the middle halfwit. So, but essentially what I'm getting at with this scale is when you meet people, you should be observing how their brains work. Is this a very emotional individual? Is this someone who's driven off emotions, just does stuff? Crude. Like, is this an intelligent person? No. Crude. Or, okay, this is an intelligent person, but how intelligent? He lacks social skills. He lacks so, and that also goes with that first scale I was talking about, the boxes. You can easily be friends with multiple different kinds of these people, but you're going to have to put them in boxes. Appropriate boxes, because as I said, the intellectual's probably not going to enjoy you taking him out in public all the time. He's usually very introverted. Versus the crude, always wants to go out in public, and you're like,
Yeah.
I don't want to go out in public. So uh, there's a balance. There's a balance to things, and knowing this about a person really helps categorize them in the box that you need to put them in, because you're like, okay, this guy's an intellectual. He's very smart. Thinks about stuff. He might be a good person for advice. The crude, maybe not. Right? Maybe not. But then again, the intellectual might be too intellectual for advice. He might not want to give you any advice. He might be too busy rabbit holding his own thoughts. So maybe we need to find a halfwit. Somewhere in between who can give me advice. Right? So it's all about figuring out when I meet somebody, which of these are you? Right? I always want to categorize, like, where's your intelligence at? Are you very emotional? You just live off emotions? You're not thinking things before you do them? You just do stuff? Okay, you're dangerous. You're a liability. You're definitely not getting in my box.
Yeah.
Okay, you're a deep intellectual. You might be a serial killer.
Nope.
Nope.
You're
not getting in my box. I got to break down every little micro aspect of it because you're overthinking every single fucking thing. Intellectual. But when you notch closer to the middle, you'll get someone who is a little bit more balanced. They understand emotions, but they also understand logic. They're able to do both. That is what you typically want, not the farthest ends of the extreme. But that's for your person. That's your box. It's okay to have these people in the outside boxes, but we have to know what they are, how their default brain works, right? And as I said, you can move up and down that scale, right? Where if you're a crude, which I can admit, my brain developed. I was a kid, and I was a very crudy kid. I was a nuck, and I've decided to try to get smarter, and so I'm trying to work my way to a half-wit or wherever I want to be on that scale. Or you could be an intellectual.
Yeah,
learn some people skills. Learn some emotions. Learn some people skills, some emotions. Learn how to turn it off sometimes. If the computer won't turn off, okay, we've got to shut that thing down. Learn how to find balance. But essentially, with anyone you meet, I always meet people and place them in this scale so I know where they belong, right? What type of person they are, what I can expect from them, different things like that. Right? If they're a crude, I probably don't want to have a bunch of conversations with them. They probably only want to talk about
Go Chiefs
or what's popular in the, if that's all you can talk about is the Chiefs, you can't talk about nothing else. You're probably not the greatest person to talk to, and that's okay. We can watch the Chiefs game together. I'll be over there. We'll watch it. But if we can't talk about nothing else, that's all we will do.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like that. That's it. Like, I'm not doing much else with you. If that's at least okay. Talking, and that's okay. We can still be friends, but you know what I mean? But yeah, so essentially that's my scale. Hopefully you guys can use that to your advantage. And when you're analyzing and processing how people think, how they work, are they overly logical? Are they crudes? And as I said earlier, feel free to shoot me a message and inquire more information about different traits, because there's a lot to it. That's just kind of a broad scale to kind of understand it. And you can only really gain a massive understanding by talking and learning and communicating with people and learning about people. It's an essential thing if you want to reach enlightenment, in my opinion.
This is actually something we apply on a regular basis. I'm gonna hang on.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that.
Okay, so for instance, we have this book, and yes, all of our friends that are in this know of this.
Yep.
They partook. So everybody's aware. We're not just bad people. We're not bad friends. So this is what we call our book of self-reflection. It's kind of a book of a way to monitor where you're at on the scale. So it's kind of fun. I'll show it to you real quick. So we have pictures of our friends along with a scale. Okay. And we have strength, endurance, perception, luck, intellectual, charisma or agility?
Intelligence.
Oh, intelligence.
Yeah.
That's what I meant.
They're we took them from freaking Fallout, the video game. You build your character and you use these attributes, but that's what we took them from. And essentially, so we have this book that we still use when we meet people, and we're able to place them in the book and stat them with whatever we think their strength.
It's not just us. We take a group of 3 friends opposite of the person that's being what would you call that? Graded.
Oh yeah, so
we take like 3 people, and then everybody has to agree on that specific stat in order for it to be.
So like my own stats in here, I didn't make them. Like this was made by like 3 other of my friends. So like here's mine, that's me, and all my stats were made by people around me. So that way I'm not. Oh yeah, I'm a. And you have 30 points you have to divide between all the stats. Yeah. So. But yeah, that was a fun thing we do, and to kind of understand and observe people, and sometimes
also to kind of see where other people see you as.
Yeah,
it's hard to see outside of yourself. Yeah, that's why we call it the book of self-reflection. So you're able to see where people deem you at and try and work, because the stats can change. Like we said,
your goal should be
to do better
if everyone thinks you have 0 intelligence, which there are people in that book. If we give you the book and obviously 3 people who know you think you have 0 intelligence, maybe that's something you need to work on. You're probably accrued. Or if you have a high level of intelligence,
but really
and low strength, usually it'd be low charisma, low strength. Yeah. Then you probably need to work on that, So it kind of helps see yourself so you can
try and stay balanced within yourself.
Yeah, to try to balance yourself. That's always the goal. But yeah, that was another fun thing we did. We, as I said, I think it's very important to observe and understand people around you. That way you can place them in the right box. And when you understand how someone thinks, whether they're crude or intellectual or a half-wit, you also understand the thoughts behind people's actions, right? So I can understand, okay, you think this way. That makes sense why you did this.
Yeah.
I'm not taking it personal. I'm not thinking,
You're able to separate it.
I'm able to separate it. Okay, you're an introvert. Mm-hmm. You're a really smart introvert who likes to stay home. I'm not taking it personal because I asked you to come out. And you didn't want to come out. No, I'm like, oh, fuck them. They don't like me. No, that's not what it is. It's simply that they're an intellectual.
It's not their cup of tea.
It's not their cup of tea. That's not their brain. Does not like social interaction. You know what I mean?
Stresses them
out. Yeah. So don't take it personal. Now I can understand that about that person and not take it personal. And I can keep them in the box that they belong. I don't have to put them in a faraway box just because they're an intellectual. So that's essentially how you would apply that knowledge to putting people in the right boxes. And that's a great scale. And maybe you guys can make your own scales and different things, but it's understanding how someone's base brain works, so that way you know how to operate, how to deal with, how to communicate, and things like that. Hope you guys feel good about that. Hope it helped. Hope you guys can apply it. We're almost done here, actually. The next topic we have is the optimistic lens versus the pessimistic lens. That's the glass half full versus the glass half empty sort of people. Essentially, last topic, optimistic lens versus pessimistic lens. This is sort of related to that last scale, but not quite, because this is more like the lens that people view reality through.
Yeah.
Right? Like a perception / comprehension, right? So if I say something, I'm trying to think of something, a good example. Like the glass half full, glass half empty. I can grab a glass, it's halfway. It's halfway full. You're like, oh, it's halfway empty. Right? We view this glass 2 very different ways. And that's something to take into consideration when you're talking to certain people. How is their lens? What is their view on reality? Mm-hmm. And that has everything to do with positivity and negativity of the individual. And that can also stem from trauma and upbringings and things like that. But it is very important we know how someone's lens on reality is. Right. Because I could say something like, I could be like, oh, you're wearing that shirt today. Right? And the way I viewed me saying it is, oh, I like that shirt. I see you're wearing it today. Very simple. And she might view it like, what's wrong with this shirt? Something wrong with this shirt? I'm like, oh,
Take it off.
Takes it off, throws it. I'm like, yo,
change the whole outfit.
yeah. I'm like, yo, I didn't mean nothing. I was just acknowledging that you were wearing that shirt. I thought it looked nice. Well, then why'd you say it like that? Like, I didn't know I said it any kind of bad way. And so that's a prime example of an optimistic lens or a pessimistic lens. Someone with a pessimistic lens, that's their view on life, they can hear anything as a negative thing.
Yeah.
Anything.
It's always a personal attack.
Always a personal attack. Someone could be complimenting you. Oh, I like that. And you're like, oh, this snobby bitch. You know, like she's fucking just insulted. And she might really mean I like that. Or she might be a snobby bitch.
Yeah.
But here's the variable. You get to choose how you perceive that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm very into I can and this is part of keeping people in the right box. If I might think in the back of my head, okay, maybe that was a snobby remark. I don't know. But I'm going to choose the positive one.
Yeah.
Maybe she meant nothing by it. I always like to give people somewhat of a benefit of the doubt. That way, it takes her actually eventually saying, because if they're a negative person, it's going to come out bluntly eventually. And then I'm like, oh, okay, I understand how this person is. This is a very negative person. Right. Versus me assuming they're negative would technically make me the negative person. Does that make sense? Because of my lens. So if something's ever said on a line, it's okay to be in your head in the balance about it. Like, let me keep an eye on you.
Yeah.
That's okay. But how I am going to react on the outside is always going to be from a positive lens. Like, oh, thanks.
Right.
If I'm like, oh, thanks. Like, you like this? And they're like, no, I was being sarcastic.
I'm like, oh, okay.
Okay, you're a negative shit.
Yeah.
But if I'm like, oh, thanks, I appreciate that, and they don't say nothing about it, I can just assume, and I think it's safe to assume, you know, and even if they did mean a sarcastic remark, but they didn't have the gall to say it twice, I'm not going to take nothing by it, and that keeps my life more peaceful.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, you definitely lean more into the optimistic perspective.
I try to, because I don't want. I've seen negative people. I've seen people get negative about me saying little things. Oh, what you mean by that? I'm like, I mean nothing. Calm down. Like, oh shit, chill. Like, relax. You know. And so I definitely choose the positive over the negative, unless someone outright, bam. Okay, I see.
Yeah.
I see how you are. You suck. You know what I mean? And so it's also important on understanding not only other people's optimistic or pessimistic views on life, but understanding your own.
Yeah.
You know, and understanding these things about someone is also important. Like, if you want advice from somebody, the pessimistic individual is probably not the greatest person for advice.
No.
You're gonna be like
doomsday.
Yeah, doomsday.
I call them Eeyores.
Eeyores. Oh, it's gonna rain today. You know, like, these people are very negative. They're not gonna usually give you any kind of positivity when you ask them for advice.
Right.
And knowing that and that doesn't, just because you have a pessimistic view doesn't mean we can't be friends either.
Right.
But it does mean that
box.
Yeah, I put you in the appropriate box. Right? You get offended by every little thing I say, you're probably in a pessimistic view. You're taking, like, because some certain things you say can be taken two different ways. Like, just like you can say something and it can be interpreted two different ways. So if someone's always interpreting what you say as a negative, then they're probably a pessimistic individual. Versus if someone always takes it positive, they're an optimistic individual. And so that's also another important thing to understand about people when you're gauging and understanding them is, are they an optimistic person or a pessimistic person?
Yeah.
And sometimes you can have somebody in between, but usually they're on one side or the other. And so that also lets you know, like, okay, I need to be careful with how I communicate with this person, because I can expect, if I don't sugarcoat the things I say, I'm going to get a hostile response. You know, like now I also know how to react with this person better. It's like a people skill. I know how to deal with this person a lot better because I'm aware that they're a pessimist versus, you know, the optimistic person you can usually say whatever to almost. I also think it's important to try to find balance in that thing as well.
Yeah.
I think that you can be so optimistic that you're a fool. I think that's a variable.
Yeah.
I think if you're that guy who's like, oh, my girl would never cheat on me. She is wonderful. She is just loyal as hell. And then your buddies are like, bro, our buddy took this picture at the club yesterday. Like, isn't that your girl right there? Like, okay, you're an optimistic fool.
Yeah.
Versus, you know what I mean? That like there should be a
Yeah.
balance between overly optimistic and overly pessimistic. Where you just think,
I feel like-
oh, everyone's out to hurt me all the time. Everyone there, like that. And then that once you live a life that's that negative, it affects everything about you. You won't even be able to work a job. You know, if you ever watch Wednesday, she's very pessimistic. She's very hard to be friends with. Very, aggressive. Like that's not the greatest way to be if you want friends. So it's good to find balance. I can be like, okay, this glass is half full if I'm gonna fill it up, but it's half empty if I'm still drinking it. You know, like that's kind of like a balanced way to go about it instead of arguing about whether it's half full or half empty.
Yeah.
So that's another key detail is making sure we find balance in understanding in those lenses of life. And when we're talking to people, we know, okay, they have a negative lens. Maybe I should be careful with how I word things. I don't want to offend them.
Mm-hmm.
Or if they are optimistic, like let's not take advantage of that person, or or you have an optimistic person in your life, you should also look out for that person because a lot of times they're scammable, easy to take advantage of, and so you want to make sure you're protecting those kind of people, or at least providing knowledge to them that, hey, you're being an optimistic fool. Right. So we don't want. That's another scale. The lens you see life through. You want to find balance in it because you don't want to be a pessimistic piece of shit. You don't want to be an optimistic fool. You want to find balance.
Yeah.
So, I think that is the gist of what we're talking about. I think one more thing I wanted to briefly sum up is we're talked about the effects that trauma has on people. And the variable that determines, so you can't be like, oh, they've been through a lot of trauma, they're a bad person. Not necessarily. We have to gauge if they're self-reflective or not. If a person is self-reflective, that means they're self-aware, they're very conscious of themselves and things going around them in their life. And a lot of times they're able to make change in themselves based on being self-reflective, based on being like, okay, damn, my parents might have been abusive or my ex was abusive, but I see that. I also see how it rubbed off on me and I actively changed it, right? And so you're going to give a lot of self-reflective responses like, okay, if you're asking someone about their last relationship, they'll tell you something like, yeah, my ex might have been a piece of shit and beat me and I wasn't great either because I did this, that, and the other thing. That's a very self-reflective response because that's acknowledging where you went wrong. That shows that you can see that you're not always right. And a lot of people, unfortunately, can't do that.
Someone else for being the way you are.
Yeah, not having that victim mentality. So, big key when acknowledging and understanding people, are they a self-reflective person? Can they admit when they are wrong? Can they admit when they have been wrong? Can they be conscious enough to see who they are and become who they want to be?
Yeah.
Because they understand they can self-reflect on see themselves, so that gives them the power to mold themselves into who they want to be. That is the type of persons you want as close friends, is a self-reflective person, or a spouse, self-reflective person. I think that sums up pretty much our lesson for the day is, as I said, cycling and stopping those cycles and knowing what box to put people in and all those different things. That is essentially what we tried to cover today.
The scales of life.
Scales of life. I think that's all we had time for today, because there's a vast amount of knowledge to things, even knowledge that we might not know yet.
Absolutely.
And so there's a vast amount of knowledge that we're always constantly looking to grow. You guys should always constantly looking to grow. And I hope these scales are something that helps you observe and understand people.
Yeah.
And the more you can observe and understand people, the more power you gain in your life to, whether it's, control people, or whether it's even control your own environments and your own life. Because the last thing you want is toxic people in your life causing you to do a bad cycle. I can break that cycle by putting people in certain boxes because I understand the way they tick, I understand the way they think, I understand everything about them. That is how I gain power over my own life and power over the influence of people around me in my life. So, hope it helps. Hope you guys can take that, empower yourselves with it, and you guys have a fantastic day.
Ed, Ed, Eddie.